Okay, now up next, Diana Kersey, artist and potter, a visual artist, studio, pottery, architectural ceramics, a raw textural quality with clay encompassed in translucent, earthy glaze. Birds, insects, fish, and flowers presented in her work suggest a primordial narrative, while the underlying decorative grids and motifs capture the relentless energy, complexity, and contradictions that bolster our contemporary society, words you will never hear on local TV news. Kersey earned a MFA in ceramics from Washington State University, 97 BFA in drawing from Texas Tech, and has lived and maintained a studio in San Antonio since 1998. Please give it up for Diana Kersey!
These days I define myself as a potter, and while I make all kinds of work in clay, pottery is a source of inspiration for all of it. My work is, my pots are made on the potter's wheel and they become a blank canvas for my carving and sprig work. And what sprigs are is they're made by creating an original design out of modeling clay, making a mold of it, and loading the mold with soft clay and pressing it onto the pot. So this is a picture of the sprig molds. Another example of a pot using a fish and frog sprig, lidded jars approximately 24 inches tall. Glazes for my pots are earthenware and fired to 1940 degrees Fahrenheit. The colorants in my glazes are copper for this blue, iron for yellow, and copper and iron for green. This is an example of using sprigs like a Mr. Potato Head, where I sprig the cone shape, cut open and shape the beak, poke 2 holes for nostrils, and then sprig the eyes on separately to build up an image of the bird. It's then painted with colored slips and glaze. So I mentioned at the beginning that pottery informs my other work, and this is evidence of my lighting. These are thrown upside down in the potter's wheel, incised, sprigged, and then they're left their natural terracotta color with no glaze. So the next image is the chandelier for a private home entryway. The parts were made on the potter's wheel. The arms are hollow and extruded tubes, sprig design, cobalt blue slit, and then it's glazed much like a fish and frog jar. And it was a real challenge, and I'm not proud. So then this leads to my bread and butter work, which are custom, one-of-a-kind kitchen backsplashes. This is an image of my first backsplash I ever made. It was made in 2006. It's a bee backsplash with 3 pendant lights, and the bees refer to a Jewish tradition where honey symbolizes a hope for the sweet things in life in the new year. And you can see it still follows the tradition of ceramic tile, and I only deviated outside that grid framework for a few of the bees. It was glazed with a translucent iron amber glaze, and this glaze is also called a honey glaze. So this was kind of my breakthrough piece with the backsplashes, where I ignored the tile grid structure and started making the piece as one giant work, and then cutting it apart in a jigsaw puzzle type pattern. This way the grout lines are an integral part of the overall design. So now in the next 3 minutes, I'm going to describe my process. It takes around 8 weeks to complete. I start with drawings, and once approved by my client, I redraw the design on both clear plastic and paper templates. The drawings are 6% bigger because clay shrinks and my clay body shrinks 6%. Then I roll out an inch-thick slab using a machine that looks a lot like an industrial pasta roller, and I place the slabs side by side to stitch them together in order to create the entire work on one giant slab of clay. At this point, a square foot weighs about 10 pounds. So after that, the plastic template is placed on the slab, and the design is traced into the clay. Thank you. The right image is showing me cutting out holes on the base slab, and I do this wherever I know I will be layering more clay. So then I focus on an additive process where I scratch the surface of a small cutout slabs of clay, place them over the areas of the base slab where I earlier cut out the holes, and then press firmly to ensure adherence. So another additive technique I employ is, in order to achieve a raised line, is to place thick coils of clay on the base slab, firmly press them on, and then refine the shape with a simple draw tool. In this case, it was made out of plastic. Sometimes it's made out of wood. So slowly, an image is built up, and then completing the work becomes more of a dance between additive and subtractive processes, such as carving on it, adding my sprigs, etc. In all this time, I have to keep the work very wet in order to keep it from shrinking, because if it starts to shrink, it will start to crack apart. So then we're left with the final work, and the client's asked to come in and review it in the wet state. Once it's approved, it's carefully cut into kiln-sized sections for firing. Cutting is a critical part of the final design because the grout lines need to unify the entire composition. The work is then slowly dried to prevent warping, and it's placed in a kiln and disc fired to 1940 Fahrenheit. Then it's glazed with handcrafted glazes made from materials mined from the earth, and finally it's fired again in a computer-controlled kiln close to around 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So then the work is installed using new polymer-modified thin-set mortars. Colored grout is piped in using grout bags, much like decorating a cake. And the finished work here is approximately 85 square feet. It's glazed with a creamy, semi-matte, sugary, and slightly sparkly glaze. And it really looks and feels like stone. So finally, I'm about to undertake my largest work utilizing this technique. I've been commissioned 2 bridges going into Brackenridge Park, one on Mulberry by Lions Field. The theme for that is the life cycle of the Gulf Coast toad. Each bridge is over 200 square feet. And this last shot is of my new studio space at 2013 Blanco, just south of Hildebrand. It has over 2,000 square feet of workspace, 1,000 square feet of showroom space, and it's a huge step up from my 2-car garage studio. Thank you very much.